Life is the most special and interesting thing that can exist in the universe as far as we know. I'm Dr. Chris Errol, a molecular biologist, and I want to introduce you to a very interesting scientific and philosophical thought experiment, which I believe proves this to be true. But don't take my word for it, let me know in the comments below. Imagine there is an artificial intelligence from another universe, and this is the big suspension of disbelief I'm asking for here. We're not going to care about the origins of this AI. Forget about who or what made it. The reason this AI scientist has come here is because the universe where it originates is pretty far along on its way to heat death. In other words, meaningful structures are finding it more and more difficult to exist in the first place. This AI scientist is tasked with identifying the most interesting physical phenomenon in our entire universe. It has no concept of human frameworks, ideologies, or emotions. It's making pure, objective measurements. Maybe a bit far-fetched, but the AI then scans the entire universe, collecting information on the positions and composition of all the atoms and molecules, all the physical matter and how it's arranged. The scientist has acquired the data. It now needs to analyse all of this information and then try and make a scoring system for what is the most interesting thing that can exist. It starts at the larger scale, looking at collections of galaxies, and looking on this level, it looks like kind of a chaotic arrangement of galaxies. Some of them look really cool, but at this level there isn't something really meaningful that is readily observed. Remember as well, with the universe, there's vast expanses of empty space. And this reminds the AI scientist of the universe where it originates, so it's not that interested in those. So it hones in on these galaxies. Galaxies are made up of their component parts, which are gas, dust, up to hundreds of billions of stars, and potentially even more planets than that. Some galaxies even have a black hole at the centre, such as our Milky Way, which has a supermassive black hole. So all of these things contribute to the beautiful structure of the galaxy. Now, if we zoom in to just one of these stars, take an example that resembles our sun. This is a nuclear fusion reactor that is powered by hydrogen, and in the core it is fusing that hydrogen to produce helium, and this is emitting huge amounts of energy and plasma. So plasma is another form of matter that is quite widespread in the universe as well, and it's the source of the northern lights. Now, this is a very interesting structure that can't exist in the other universe the AI is familiar with. And there are even organized patterns, almost like honeycomb structures on the surface of the sun, which are called convection cells. And again, it's an impressive example of some level of organization spontaneously arising in the matter within this universe. So they score pretty highly on the interesting scale. There's a hell of a lot going on in a star, a lot more than is going on in the empty space between galaxies. If we then look at the rocks and gas planets that circle stars, and we will take the Earth as our example here, then we have something incredibly interesting going on again. When the AI analyzes the molecules, the chemistry on Earth, it finds molecules that can exist but are extremely unlikely, improbable to exist. And the only explanation for this is something is building these complex molecules. It just doesn't make sense that there would be this much interesting stuff all in one place. This is what the scientists Sarah Walker and Lee Cronin describe as a signature of life, a certain level of complexity that is just so improbable that it would not arise by chance. And they call this the assembly index. And your cells and my cells and all living things are filled with molecules which have this very high assembly index, which they take as an indication to mean that these things wouldn't arise spontaneously, and certainly not in the numbers that you find them here on Earth. And this really gets to the heart of one of the things about life that is so interesting. Life does its own chemistry. Okay, the sun was able to form higher level elements from simpler ones like hydrogen through nuclear fusion, but life is able to assemble complex molecules. Life is able to encode information based upon the combination of atoms and molecules. Now, the discovery of DNA in 1953 transformed the world and our understanding of life and the universe. But I don't think we've quite put it into those words before, that atoms, that molecules can encode information, and that life has created the situation where this occurs. It's quite incredible. So life builds complex molecules that shouldn't really exist. It's like a little chemist that's making molecules that wouldn't spontaneously arise, or if they did, it would be very rare, once in a trillion years. But on Earth, there's loads of these molecules. Life is also able to make copies of itself, which is another unbelievable property for matter to exhibit. But the other thing is that life, individual organisms, a human being, a bacterial cell, all of these things and everything in between acts with a sense of purpose, intentionality. And this could be in the purest form of moving towards nutrients and moving away from toxins in the case of a bacterial cell. Or it could be the way that humans build entire cities and civilization. If we think about one form of life, humans, through scientific technology from 1944 onwards, this is only a very recent development, they've been able to make atomic elements that wouldn't normally exist. That's those with an atomic number of 95 or higher. So how do you explain that by the laws of physics? Surely that's sort of contravening the laws of nature. If you were to look at the conditions on Earth, you'd say, well, those types of atoms wouldn't occur. Furthermore, I've mentioned before how living things, all living things, seem to form complex molecules, complex arrangement of molecules that can even encode information, which is not something that would happen spontaneously just from the laws of physics. So does life contravene the laws of physics? Well, scientists did used to think so, although not all of them. A famous scientist, Erwin Schrödinger, in his book, What is Life?, suggested that we needed a new law of physics to describe life. In reality, though, you and I and all living things are completely in agreement with the laws of physics. What do you think? Would the AI describe this as the most interesting type of thing that can exist in our universe, this phenomenon of life? Or would there be something else formed from dark energy or dark matter, something that we can't even necessarily perceive with our built-in senses? Let me know in the comments below if you think that life is only scratching the surface of possibilities.